I used to like about comic movies is that they used to surprise you, wow you. You know, you went to see X-Men, you're like, I want to see how they get out of this bind. You went to see the Wolverine, you're like, I want to see Hugh Jackman fuck shit up. I mean, you knew that somewhat, you knew the general plot of what was happening, but it still surprised you. You still went in there and you're like, oh, I didn't think they were going to do that. I didn't see that. I seen that in the trailer, but I didn't think that was Mystique turning into Wolverine to confuse the Striker. You know, you were still surprised. I didn't have any of that in Infinity War. Infinity War was one of the most cliche movies I've ever seen. I was able to predict pretty much everything that was going to happen before it happened. They go to the collectors. I knew that as soon as they're like, well, this place looks different. That Thanos already got there. Thanos used the Reality Stone. Thanos fucked things up. There was no surprises in Infinity War. There was nothing. You pretty much knew what was happening. I mean, yes, it was normally 15 minutes before it happened, but you knew. There was no surprises. There was no aha moments. There was no oh my gods. It was crap. It was the most mediocre movie I've ever seen. And I don't mean that to be mean to Infinity War. I mean, it had to do its job. But when you make a cinematic universe like Marvel did, and then you make a big movie like Infinity War, they have to put elements of other movies in there. And when they do that, it just becomes so fucking predictable. And that's what I didn't like about it. It was so you went in there and you're like, I know what's happening. You just knew because there was no surprises anymore. It was like, you know what I mean? You knew that this movie was going to end one way because you already knew the movie schedule coming out. You already knew that they had this big flowing arc. You knew that they needed to do this, this, and this. You already knew they were building up to this. And unfortunately, when you know stuff like that, there's no surprises anymore. And that's why when I went to see movies, but the comic book movies, I liked watching the Cinematic Universe Phase 1, the MCU's Phase 1, some of the Phase 2 stuff, some of it. And I loved watching X-Men because you didn't know how fucking Fox was going to go around that because they clusterfucked it up. But it was still enjoyable to watch because you didn't know how this was going to happen, because you didn't know the movies ahead of it. But where the MCU fucked up at is that it let us know ahead of time the movie schedules. So we already know we already know how this was going to end. If you're intelligent, if you went in not knowing these things, it would be a surprise to you. But if you're actually a fan of the MCU, you would know the movie layouts, the movie schedules. You would know what needs to happen in what movie in these Avenger movies for things to progress along to the next phase. And unfortunately, when you know stuff like that, there's no surprises anymore. It's kind of like the prequel Star Wars films. The reason why people were so upset, I think, on some of those prequel movies, because we knew what was going to happen. Anakin Skywalker would eventually have to be Darth Vader. When you know that's the end goal, it ruins it because there's no surprises. You know that logically shit has to happen for things like that to happen. Same thing with the MCU. For Thanos to get all those stones, we knew what he had to do. He had to go to Earth to get one. He had to do this to get the other one. He had to go to a planet and kill Gamora on another one. We know this because we know the layouts of the next few films. And when you know that, unfortunately, there's just no surprises. And your film becomes dull and boring.